Shana, hello patrons and welcome to this month's teaching video. Now, I've been preparing for this for the past couple weeks, thinking about how to condense it down because this topic, weather magic, is very, very vast. But ironically, as we speak, there is a Hurricane Ian, barreling through the tropics and coming straight toward me in Florida. So it's actually very appropriate, if not somewhat ironic. I'm not sure. But yeah, so let's get into it. Weather magic. Okay, so I am working from my designated home office area, and so hopefully there won't be too many interruptions, but let's get started. So in my book of treasures here, weather magic is really comprised in a generalized category, which magic doesn't really have categories, neither does Norse spirituality, but in the elemental of air. So if you have earth, water, fire, and air, weather is encompassed in that air category. As a matter of fact, some of the Sami language words and Swedish words, and I'm sure other Scandinavian or Germanic words, the word for wind and weather and air are kind of interchangeable at times. And that is subtle, but actually sheds a lot of light on how we approach weather magic. So, weather magic is not something that you can control or manipulate. It is something that you can learn to communicate with those spirits and have things go the way you would like. So it's more about communication than it is about, if you say abracadabra, XYZ, throw a puff of smoke in the air, this is going to happen, that will be the result. That is not how it works, my friend. Get that type of thinking out of your head right now when it comes to weather magic. Because coming from the animistic Scandinavian point of view, weather is comprised of lots of spirits, lots of energies that, quite frankly, have their own mind quite often. There are no guarantees in weather magic. The more experienced you are, which oftentimes comes with the older you are. And I'm just going to say, in magic, that is usually how things work. Side note, just going to say, someone can have talent, which might be a natural ability to separate themselves from what they are casting, releasing it and forgetting about it, or maybe they have an innate ability to be clairvoyant. Those types of things you can have a natural affinity for, especially when you're born and people see that about you. But there are some things that time alone gives you the advantage of. So if you are naturally born with certain, I'll just say abilities, I don't even want to, that's a whole nother video. I don't want to get into all that with this one. But say you are naturally born with certain abilities. Just think how much stronger they will be the older you get. So you see where I'm getting with this. It's about a relationship. You're establishing a relationship with weather beings that grows over time. and you begin to trust in that relationship, and therefore you have confidence in the weather magic or casting that you're doing. But it's not because if you do this, this, and this, it will automatically work. Not how weather magic is. Okay, so back to my glasses because I don't want to miss any of the points I picked up on. It is, we know, we know from the sagas and the Eddas that in the weather or the wind, here we're going to interchange those words. In the wind resides the spirits of the restless dead. Now think about what I'm saying. And we know Odin's Rite, the ride of Odin that we talk about around Yule, and the restless spirits of the dead. And if you're caught out at night, during that time they might swoop you up and blah 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 blah. There's old Scandinavian traditions that if there's a terrible weather or a awful thunderstorm on the night that someone passes, well, everyone knows that a dishonorable person passes during a storm. So, and that was huge because obviously your reputation is everything, right? So, oh my God, that could just, bad timing to die during some bad weather. So there are these traditions, and that is what magic is. It's a continuation of humanity's view on how to connect with the supernatural. So they hold weight. Just because we live now doesn't mean we cast those out. So the residing of nefarious spirits or the restless dead. Now, restless dead implies that they had a body, but the wind is also said to hold other foul or bad spirits. So the worst is the north. So weather coming from the north or a northerly wind. Now, some of this may be because of the tradition that I'm in and the geography on the planet that this culture has been passed down to me. Scandinavia, yeah, the northerly winds are awful. You could simply lose your life if there's a cold north wind and you step outside and for some reason it starts to snow and you are blinded and can't find your way back to your little cabin in the woods or whatever. After 8 hours, you're dead. That's the power that weather has. Weather has the power to kill. Anything that has the power to kill is an extremely powerful being or force. That's why humans are incredibly powerful. That's a whole other thing. Anyway, so the northerly wind is the most dangerous, and it is the one that is said to hold the things that can be detrimental for us. As a matter of fact, you don't want to catch your death of cold, or you don't want to stay outside and catch an illness. These things, even today, generations today, you hear that, oh, you're going to catch your death of cold. Don't go to bed with wet hair, or, come in out of the rain and dry off. We associate as humans traditionally long-standing, and there has to be a reason for it. Humanity as a whole has associated with bad weather having the ability to bring you a disease, bring you an illness, bring you death. And so we know that bad things come in the weather. It's folk tradition that where there was a whirlwind or a tornado, something like that, that means there was a witch. A witch was about. Because why? They fly on the air. Odin flies on the air, on the wind. And so that's where we get these types of things. Now that brings me to the idea that bad things come in the wind, especially when it is an abrupt change from what you're used to. A northerly front coming in, or a southerly hurricane coming up. Even though traditionally southern air or weather is viewed as good or healing, as we will find out this week, no, it's not always. So because danger comes in the wind or comes in the weather, that is why we associate it with things like these bad witches that would fly about. Who's saying that? The good witches. So, it's just silly. But, I mean, it's silly that they call them actual witches, but the people who were sharing this type of stuff, that's what they were. So it's like, it's not because they're a witch that they're bad. It's because have a malicious intent on you. So, what did people do traditionally that you can do to abate? So, what can you do to abate some of these negative, dangerous, deadly things? The same thing that has been done in ages past, and that is the use of steel. Steel is said, just like in the case of the Fae, to cause these elemental beings and these restless spirits to be afraid, and therefore they'll stay away. They stay away, they're afraid of it, they don't like it. And so you can incorporate steel into your practice when being concerned with bad weather that is dangerous, weather that could harm you. So the use of steel goes back for ages and ages. And that is really part of why we would develop weapons made out of steel. They're so durable. They work great. So the physical reflects the spiritual and vice versa, just like the world above us and the world beneath the earth is similar in spiritual realms. So just like steel is a good weapon to harm a living body, well, then maybe steel can be used to defend against a spirit without a body. That is the logic, and that was the thinking behind it. And to this day, seems to hold true. The good thing about these myths and traditions and folk practices and what Norse spirituality has preserved and what we find written in our beloved texts and things is that these things have been relatively tried and true over time. People still say that steel works in these types of situations and weather magic. There are people who will swear by it. Try it. Try it and see. Try and see if you are able to abet things that encroach or infringe and cause fear. Things that might be dangerous in the spiritual realm. incorporate some steel into that, not just in your weather magic, and see what happens and let us know. I'd love to hear in the Discord some of your experiments with this type of stuff. So, as I said before, traditionally, relationships are the key in weather magic. Just like anything in life, guys, and I tell you this all the time. So, with relationships, let's talk about deities. How do they play a part? Well, traditionally, can you think of any deities in particular that are associated possibly with weather? The first one that comes to mind for me is, of course, Thor, right? Thor, the Thunder god, as my father would say, the god of thunder and lightning. Now, yes, for many Swedes, he was a go-to anyway, but especially for weather. Because what I said previously about danger coming in the form of bad weather or danger comes in the wind, it's not just about you or us humans. They were worried about everything in olden times. In ancient Scandinavia, Norse pagans were, whether, yeah, I could die, but it could ruin my crops and then my family could starve. It could ruin my animals. So the danger that comes in the weather affects animals and livestock, your crops, the foliage, the greenery around you, as well as humans themselves. So where now I think our things about weather are like, don't take the roof off my house. Please, it's going to cost me a lot of money. We have to understand the scope of what bad or nefarious weather could bring on the wind to ancient Norse pagans. It was everything. So you wanted to make sure that you had a connection to something possibly more powerful than you who could influence it. Hence, certain deities was one thing. So, Thor, Odin was a huge one because he was the one who kind of managed all that riding on the wind and taking people's souls and doing the winter night ride and Odin's Rit, where the restless dead spirits are caught up forever to be on the hunt that Odin does in the winter. So he was one that people often went to for trying to get favor with the weather. Another one, I'm hearing you say it out loud, I'm hoping, if you've learned anything from all the stuff I've taught before, Yngve Frey, Yng, the god Yng, who blessed the crops with sunshine and caused fertility. Well, fertility wasn't just about, or even just fertile crops. It was about the weather that would make those crops fertile. So they were another one. Now, before the big war gods came, which they all really are part of that, before that tradition, there was Nerthus. Now, Nerthus is a Latinized version of the name that they believe she actually had, and it was a deity that was a mother goddess. And before Nerthus was in charge of weather-related things, it was just the ancient Disir, the ancient goddesses, the old ones, that when you go back far enough in every culture, they seem to be a little bit connected. Now, there are people who will argue with me. There are people who will say, absolutely not, that's not true. But if you look into Indo-European beliefs, which is where India got their goddess and god forms from, and where the middle of, in between Europe and Eurasia, the Eurasian continent got them from, and where the Europeans got them from, where so many, and then who spread out in different parts of the world and spread their belief systems too. If you look at ancient Indo-European gods and goddesses, you will see the faces of many of our own beloved deities that the Norse pagans call on today. But that, again, also is a whole nother thing that I'm going to get sidetracked on, so I don't want to do that. Anyway, and that can be controversial because there is, just so you are aware, if you want to go down that rabbit hole, you have to be careful because there is the white supremacists, of course, got their fingers in some of that now too, where they push this Indo-European thing, like that it somehow all goes back to them being the original superior race. That's what it always goes back to. So yeah, if you see things taking a bad turn going that way, you're in the wrong part of that type of learning history. So I want to warn you about that. But the Indo-European culture is a historical fact, and we believe that Nerthos comes out of that to some degree. Again, the name Nerthos is a Latinized version, so she would not be called that. It always goes back to the feminine, the divine feminine. Which makes sense, because people are born out of they come out of the divine feminine. They're out of feminine beings. So those would be deities, right? What other type of beings would be affected? Well, we already mentioned like fae type of spirits, which we don't really have a fae tradition, but we have like this incredible Tontanisa elf tradition, troll tradition. So, which we talked about already, using steel to aid in. So those are two different groups, right? Deities and them. What about the Landvater? Perfect. The land itself has a spirit, has an energy. So I'm going to show you right now some ways that, okay, let's learn how to change the weather and talk about some things you can do to change the weather. And those things would be dealing, yes, possibly with a deity, but with Landvater, with land spirits, with the spirits of the land, the water, the forest, the wood, those types of things, land spirits. And let me tell you this before I give you those examples on how to change the weather. You want to have a good relationship with whatever spirits you are going to talk to and that you are going to try to invoke. Okay? If you just think you can wham bam, I can just do this and yep, it's going to happen, that's why your magic is weak, and that's why your magic won't work. Okay? There's something else I want to mention, and that in closing, when I close, I'm going to reiterate it. But in something I want to mention, and that is the idea of catastrophes and weather anomalies that are worldwide, and participating in trying to alter them. Generally, what that it's frowned upon. If it doesn't directly affect you, um, we are told, and what we see an example is that it shouldn't, you don't get involved. Yes, there are examples in the sagas and eddas where people hire people who have like all this tremendous experience to directly alter something or change something, right? But it is not, it's like not your business. And that's such a Scandinavian philosophy. I don't know if you guys remember the video I made about if somebody falls on trips on the bus and they drop their groceries. It's not uncommon for some Swedes to kind of turn the other way, not because they're rude and being horrible, but because the act of getting involved when you shouldn't, at the point of embarrassing someone else, like it's such a big thing. Like, mind your own, dude. Mind your own business. Like, that's a very it's very pacifist, and it's very you know, well, World War II, Sweden was neutral. There you go. Like, God, just stay out of it. Well, sometimes you can't stay out of it. And when it does present itself in your face, then you do need to be involved. But when you're trying to change the weather in Sri Lanka, and you don't know, is the earth, is the voice of that part of the ocean rebelling against what man is doing there, or where you don't know all the details? Do you know what I'm saying? We so often, oh, well, that's horrible, and I'm gonna, pray against that, or I'm gonna do, send energy against that, or I'm gonna do magic against that. And when you don't know what that mudslide is happening, because that horrible mudslide in Haiti is happening because of what humans did to the land. Of course, we don't want people to be hurt, but if you're there, that's a different story. But sometimes, and I hope I don't sound heartless, and I'm not making this come across bad, but don't meddle with what you are not involved in and that you don't know enough about. That's all. And isn't that just a great thing to know in life anyway? Every time I stick my nose in something, I get slapped down real hard, real fast. And it's like, oh, okay, shouldn't have got involved. That really did involve me at that moment, so I don't know what I was thinking. Happens to all of us, no matter what age. Okay, so you have to remember that. Is it my place to interfere? Someone you love lives in Florida, and you feel like you want to intervene. Of course, that's affecting you, right? Okay. Or whatever. And I'm not using that just of course, that's on the forefront of my mind just because of the hurricane. But you know what I'm saying. Is this hurricane happening because we do so much shit in the ocean? I don't know. Maybe the Gulf of Mexico wants to say F you, Florida, and everybody else in the Gulf because of the swirling pools of garbage. Does she have that right to say that? You know what I mean? Like, you gotta, think about these things. So, it's just not an automatic, oh, I'm gonna sound now. You know how people always say, blah, 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 blah. And it's just a reaction. And that's huge. And because I have some experience, obviously, in the Christian realm, that's I'll pray for you. Oh, I'll pray against that. Oh, I'll pray for that. You know what I mean? Like, really? First of all, are you really going to do it? But second of all, you don't know. You're praying that I don't go to jail. How do you know I didn't kill that person? Maybe I need to go to jail. Okay, so there you have it. Really, really important. Don't butt in weather-wise when it doesn't directly involve you or those you love. And maintain a relationship with the Landvatir, spirits of the air, and those elementals, as well as deities, when wanting weather help, let's say, to do weather magic. Okay, I am going to give you right now 2 ways to make the weather good and 2 ways to make the weather bad. And why would you want to do that? I don't know why you'd want to do that, but I'm going to teach you anyway. And I trust that, you won't take it out on people you hate. But then again, I'm not going to judge you. Do what you need to do. I am here to support, to teach, and you look inside yourself to see how you use the tools that I'm going to give you. So, these are 4 different ways to change the weather. First of all, I want to say these are tried and true ways. These are traditional ways that have stood the test of time and that people did before the Viking era in Scandinavia and, well, beyond to this very day. Okay? And there's some sourcing for that. If you're one of the people, well, where does it say this in before the Viking era? Where does it say in the sagas or the Eddas? There's quite a bit about weather in the sagas and Eddas if you pay attention and aren't just looking for Loki all the time. Oh, did I? It's the devilish Loki part of me saying that. Anyway, instigating. But no, really, if you look, you'll see it. So anyway, the first one is quite benign, rather easy, and it is a way to attract the wind. Now, that might not sound like a big deal to you, but if you live in Southwest Florida, sometimes you just want that damn wind so bad because it is humid and hot. And even if it's, 95 degrees, but there's a breeze blowing on you, it's not that bad. It's enjoyable. But when it's smoldering and heavy and you're dripping just by breathing, then you really wish for wind. So, a very simple way. Whistle. Whistling calls up the wind. And it's kind of cool if you think about the butterfly effect or the ripple effect. I mean, what if you whistling causes a hurricane on the other side of the world? I know it doesn't work like that, but you're pushing something and putting something into motion by whistling, right? Because you're blowing air. And that pushes air, which pushes more air, which pushes more air, just like ripples, see? So it's not scientifically argued against. So whistling is a great way to call in the wind. Now, of course, you would want to have established all those other things in place and try it out. See if you can attract wind. Now, these types of things, all these 4 things, usually, what I was taught was usually within a day it takes for these to be in effect. When you go past that, it could just be chance that you're getting your result. And if you're expecting it instantly, that's not how time works for elementals or even the earth. And certainly not deities. So we are the ones who are the only ones that are trapped in this time cube. So anyway, yeah. Whistling, calling in the wind. And if you were a Viking, that was real important. You could not be stranded at sea. You needed the wind for your transportation. And especially if you were in Western Norway and you're on the coast of Norway, where there's like this much, the country might be this big, but from the ocean to about here inland is only where people could live, because this was all just rocks, right? Rocky Mountains. The foremost way of any type of travel was your boat. So extremely important. Tested, tried, and true. People to this day swear by it. There you go. That's the first one. Second way to change the weather is, and you might have to kind of know if bad weather's coming. So say I know bad weather's coming this direction. You take a board, all right? And it should be a big board, make it wide enough, maybe 12 by 3 feet, 4 feet, a board. And you build a little fire on it. Well, I shouldn't even say little. So maybe it even needs to be more than 12 inches. I have not done this, but I have been told this works. You build a fire on it and you push it into nearby water. So into the lake, into the river, into the pond, into the ocean. And you might want to practice this. This is also what I was taught, because you have to get the hang of it, or it just flips over. All right. But what this does is you are burning away the bad weather. And really, no matter where you're from, bad weather most of the time tends to come from water. Lake effect, wind, the rain moving. So you could be in the middle of the country of America, okay? Because we're here, America. And your weather is affected by the Pacific Ocean or by the Great Lakes or by, do you see what I'm saying? That's where the play of water comes into being. So obviously, if you know there's going to be a horrible storm coming off the Great Lakes, but you don't live by the Great Lakes, but that storm's coming to you, you don't have to go to the Great Lakes, of course. You find water near you. Hopefully you have already established a relationship with that water spirit. And you create the fire on the board and you push it off like a raft and wait for it to burn out. While you are waiting, you can speak your intention. So as this fire burns the air all around so it will be that this horrible rainstorm will be dissipated. Or as this fire burns up this air, so will the freezing cold snow be burnt up and dissipated. You can come up with your own, what we call a formula, or a spell, or a prayer. But it's not a request. It is a statement of intent of what you're wanting this to do. You're not doing this and saying, please, Thor, please don't make it happen. Please. That's a whole nother thing. That's you establishing the relationship with Thor and going to that deity, as I spoke to before. Giving offerings, doing whatever you do to connect to that deity, you best do it. You know what I'm saying? But this is you doing something that will change the weather. And people swear by this in Scandinavia to this day. And it's very old. It's very, very, very old. Okay? The fire burns up the bad weather. That is what it represents. And you wait until it is done. Okay, so those are two ways to change the weather in your favor for good. I forgot. There's another one that I wanted to share with you. The besom. So you take a besom, You could take a whole broom. You can take a little one that you make yourself, which I recommend because it's best to use natural materials and not take a synthetic broom that you got at Dollar Tree or whatever. You know what I mean? But you take a broom or a besom, and again, you build a fire and you burn it. You burn the broom over the fire. Again, stating your intent, very focused. As this broom burns, it is sweeping away the bad weather. So with the board antidote and the fire on the board, you kind of have to know ahead of time, oh, the weather is, going to be coming in a few days, and it's going to be a horrible rainstorm. You're not going to go out and try to put a fire on a board and send it into a body of water while it's raining. So that one you kind of have to have a heads up. But the besom, you can do that in your home, in your fireplace. You don't have to know ahead of time. So the burning of a broom is supposed to bring good weather. Again, good weather for you might not be good weather for someone else in the other part of the country or the world, and that's why you state your intent. But the burning of the broom sweeps in good weather. Okay, now some ways to create bad weather. And these were done basically to punish your enemies, to have it be messing up their crops, or they're supposed to do something important and you're making that weather, it's their wedding day. Oh, don't. Whatever, I'm not going to judge you. So the point is, there are ways to create bad weather, and these as well are tried and true, for real. Okay. I had a senior moment there for a minute. I was like, wait, what am I? Which one? What am I? Had to look at my book, my magic book. Anyway, so one of the ways to create bad weather, which you may need to do for whatever reason, I'm not going to think too much about that, but is to whip up a storm. And that is where we actually get that expression from, because people swear by this and have done it for centuries and believe that they do it. So to whip up a storm, or to cause it to rain, to create bad weather, you would traditionally take a willow branch with all the flanges on it hanging down, all the little willowy things. But if you don't have access to that, you can take any type of branch of wood that has, other little branches coming off of it, where you could whip it, and you go down to the lake, the stream, the ocean, the body of water that you already have an established relationship with the spirit of, and you begin to whip it in the water. This causes, splashing and droplets to go everywhere, and it's to mimic rain. And the thought process is, the statement that you would say in your own way, as this is creating rain, so create rain for my family in the desert who desperately need it. You state it. It's a statement of intent. You don't go, pond spirit behind my house, so and so was mean to me on TikTok, and so make it rain on their wedding day because they were mean to me. Whatever. It's weak. That's not going to work. You're not asking the pond spirit. You are saying a statement of intent. You already have a relationship with this spirit, and therefore that layers what is going to be brought forth. And people swear by this. They have done this for centuries and they swear by it in Scandinavia. It's kind of like, I don't have to say to my husband, oh, Jim, please, will you please go get milk at the store? Of course I can say that to my husband. I do say that to him, but this is just an example. Don't take me literally. But it would be, instead of saying, oh, please go to the store to get milk, I already know he's going to the store because we have a relationship. And I say, oh my gosh, we're out of milk. He's going to go get milk while he's there. If I tell him, oh, honey, we're out of milk, and he's on his way to the store, you think I gotta go, please give me some milk? No. Because we have a relationship. Same. Okay? That's why I'm not giving you specific words. You must create these things yourself. And then you don't tell them to other people. You tell them how, if you need to. I would keep stuff close to my vest. Anyway, so the cool thing about this one, whipping up a storm, is that could be for good or for ill. You could be whipping up a storm because there is a need for it to be there. You want rain to come down for crops. Or you could be whipping up a storm to foil someone else's thing. So when I say bad weather, as opposed to sunny weather, okay, that's traditionally where, if you looked up an old farmer's almanac, for example, and said how to, you would say how to make bad weather. That would be how to make rain or snow or something. Do you know what I'm saying? Okay, but that could be used either way. And another way to cause bad weather. This one is not necessarily for rain. This is more nefarious. This is more, I want there to be a storm so this can't happen type of thing. Is you're supposed to take, and there are people who swear by this. I know I keep saying that after every example, because to us in America, we're kind of like, what? But there are people who still actively do these things and believe them. And it's been around for as I said, hundreds and hundreds of years. Okay. Oh, this light is getting hot. All right. The last example I'm going to give you to cause the weather to turn bad is you take a stump that you chop wood on. You know how you have a sawed-off tree or a tree stump, and you put your piece of wood up there, and you you chop your other wood. You chop up the stump, or you chip off a chunk of a tree stump, and you burn it. Again, you burn it. You chop it up and you burn it. And then, because you're burning, and remember, now the one that's going out into the water, but with the broom, and with this one where you're burning the broom, and this one where you're burning the stump, you can then take those ashes and incorporate them into some other type of spell work that you might do or be proficient in. Combine them, and that could be a whole nother layer that you could add to wanting this work to take place. And anybody in magic knows layering of things makes it stronger. Okay? So you just chip off a chunk of a stump, chop it up and burn it, or just put it on a fire and burn it in a little cauldron, whatever. And that causes bad weather. Now, there are some other things that I think are really, really cool that I wanted to share. But they are a little bit different, and that um, is not magic, a simple way to do it, and how to release it, which will affect the weather, and a nid sting pole. There's lots of different nid stings. Everybody's like, oh, the nid sting, because they maybe read one saga. But there are weather nid stings. There's nid stings for everything. There's nid stings when you get married. So that is going to be another video this month, but that's going to be for the second and third tier. So if you're in the second or third tier, you guys will get that video. So please, the most important thing about weather is maintaining relationship. This is how our ancestors did it, no matter where our ancestors are from. But this is all throughout the sagas. This was really the basis of Norse spirituality, Norse paganism, and Norse animism, is that these things around us are beings that we can interact with and have relationships with. And therefore, when we have good relationships with people, things tend to go better for us. When we're always causing drama or fighting or cantankerous, things don't go as well for us. Same thing in Norse spirituality. All right, you guys, stay safe. Use this wisdom wisely, because you are accountable for what you put out. And I love you very much. And thank you so much for supporting me. I want to really up my game as far as my skill set with the visual stuff. And, I don't have somebody who edits my things and puts music in the right places. And I want to have a list of all my Patreon supporters rolling so you guys can see your names at the end. So I just gotta figure out how, because I'm old. But anyway, I love you guys. Thank you so much for your support. You do not know what it means to me. Your support is part of my income. So I so appreciate it. Enjoy the rest of your week. And if you're in Florida, stay safe.